there's only a certain point you can get to blaming your parents, and then at some point you're going to have to say, I'm an adult. And the reason I say take responsibility, even if you're not to blame for a situation, is that if you're not responsible, you're not responsible. If you put the onus on someone else, you're powerless to change it.
Welcome to the Mindful Paths podcast with Nick Day and Hari Kalymnios, where we explore the fascinating world of mindset, mindfulness, fitness, well-being, vitality, leadership, and of course, personal development.
Our goal is to provide you with insights to help you live a more fulfilling, happier, and healthier life.
So if you're striving to be a better parent, friend, leader, colleague, or boss, or if you simply want to be more mindful and aware of the world around you, then this Mindful Paths podcast is going to be for you.
We invite you to eavesdrop on our conversations, and we challenge you to discover a new insight to help you on your own journey towards personal growth and positive change.
So sit back,
relax, and let's begin our journey together
on the Mindful Paths podcast. Yeah, Hari, how are you doing, mate? I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm swinging on your hammock in your wonderful garden. This place is awesome.
It is like 30-something degrees, I think, today. And for me, this is my little bit of being abroad when I'm sitting in a hammock, and I don't do it all that often. So I was like, Nick's coming around, I'm going to definitely get the hammocks out and make sure we sit in them. Maybe we'll do the podcast in the hammock. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, we've had a little bit of fun today with not a proper gym session, but exploring some of the craziness that I've got in my house and some mobility stuff for you.
I've been on your sex swing.
Yes.
I've done that.
Full disclosure, it's a yoga trapeze and has not been used for the aforementioned sex swinging part of it.
It's definitely a sex swing, and I loved being on it. It was great fun. I was on it solo.
He was on solo. He was on solo.
Hari did, however, teach me a few moves on the sex swing, which were quite complicated. And I did need some assistance with a couple of them.
They were complicated.
That's all true. No, it's great, man. So for full disclosure for those listening, I'm in London for a rare week, and I thought I'd make the opportunity to pop over and see Hari because it's his birthday tomorrow.
It is.
Which is very exciting.
I don't think I'll disclose how old I'll be. But
21 years young.
21 years young.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And he's given me a little bit of a tour of his quite amazing house, which includes all the gadgets and things. And he's already treated me to 2 different types of smoothie. Actually, need to correct that. One is a smoothie, one is a juice.
Vegetable juice, vegetable smoothie.
I never knew there was necessarily a difference, but there definitely is now. I've tasted them, which have been good. Yeah. We've had a little play in your gym working on... I've discovered, it might be your birthday, but I was talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
I have some severe mobility issues.
Yeah.
Now, I used to, some people that listen to this will know this, I used to do a lot of obstacle course racing, which involved kind of full body workouts and jumping over stuff, swinging off stuff and whatever. Obviously stopped that 2 years ago. I've just been doing triathlon for the last 2 years, which is pretty much just swimming, obviously running and cycling. I don't do much of the swimming. And my 42nd birthday was in August, and I thought, oh my God, I've recently really started to feel pain in like hip flexors and groins, and I can run a marathon, but I can't bend down and pick up a box. So I asked Hari and complained to Hari about my pain, and he's been giving me some mobility exercises to do, and it's really highlighted, you're probably going to explain how bad my mobility is.
Well, I wouldn't say it's bad. Like I said, when I was in Estonia, I was doing that same 5-minute routine with my mate, and he was in exactly the same position. He's like probably 10 years younger than you. He's quite fit as well. He climbs mountains and does all sorts of things. But like I was saying to you before, mobility can be, and flexibility can be a long time to get it, but once you've got it, then it will stay for longer. Now, I'm not naturally flexible. I've been doing yoga 15 years, pretty consistently, and that's definitely helped. But even when I teach my classes, I'm teaching more of a strength-based class than a flexibility class. Most of my students are way more flexible and open than I am. But, talking about you bending down to get that box, and I think I mentioned before, the whole reason that I started yoga in the first place is because, I wanted to be, able-bodied as I aged, right? And, I see, what's happening to my dad at the moment with his mobility, and it's really hard to sort of see as you use it or lose it is the simple thing. Yeah. And the fact is that where was I the other day? I think I was in the park, and there was families, and they're walking around with their toddlers, like 2-3 years old, I guess. They're walking around, and the kid sees something on the floor. Immediately they go into that squat position.
They do squat. It's natural, isn't it?
So natural, so effortless. And I look at them every time. I've got that twinge of jealousy that I'm like, it's so easy for you. And I say to my niece all the time, because they're now like 11, 9 age, And some of them are more flexible than others, but I'm like, you've got to just keep doing that, because when you're like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, it's easy, and as you start to become like a teenager and everything else, you start to lose that a little bit more. Then 20, 30 years later, if you haven't done much,
definitely take it for granted. I mean, I studied the Moshe Feldenkrais method when I was at university.
Oh, Feldenkrais, yeah.
When his method is based on him having a major accident and being immobile, unable to walk, and various things, and he ended up being able to retrain his body despite what physiotherapists and doctors had said he'd be able to do, by studying babies and toddlers and retraining the brain and his own brain to walk and move again. And I read that years ago. If you take it for granted and you don't really think your mobility is going to go, and then literally this year I said to my wife, I almost feel like I've woken up and I just suddenly feel old, and yet I can run marathons and cycle long distances, but health isn't just about how far you can run, right?
No.
My flexibility and mobility is just terrible at the minute. So that's my new mission.
Yeah, well, like I said, 15 minutes a day. I'm not so great with it, although like yesterday I taught 2 hours of yoga, so I was like, okay, that's enough. I mean, when I teach, I tend to demonstrate a bit anyway, so I'm getting a bit in there. But 15 minutes a day, if you can just get into the habit, I think, again, it's like I keep banging on about your performance, like sleep, water, and mobility. If you tune those in,
3 things I don't have. Right?
Yeah, because the thing is, you're so amazing at all those things. Without that, like, I can't even imagine how good you'd be with that.
Well, I'm going to try. I'm making a commitment to try, and certainly on the mobility side. We should set the scene right now, right?
Are you going to try, or are you going to do it?
No, well, if usually when I say try, it means I'm going to do, right? Whether I do it as a lifelong thing for you for 20 years, I don't
but you
know.
say like do 21 days.
If you give me a 21-day program, I'll do the 21-day program.
All right, good.
But I'm going to set the scene. So for those that are listening, right now I'm swinging on a blue hammock under like a outdoor kitchen that he has in his garden, barbecue area. Harry is also on another hammock, so we kind of face across each other. We've got the sun setting. You can probably hear the planes going overhead, a little bit of traffic behind us, but what a gorgeous evening. And to be able to record and chat while swinging in a hammock is slightly surreal, incredibly relaxing. A bit of vitamin D coming in.
Yeah.
While the sun is setting. This is nice, man.
It is good. So
your house is your kingdom.
Yeah, well, that's it. The thing is, it's all about having that nice space. And like you see up on my wall, it's like good vibes only. That's the kind of #1 rule of the house. So I put that up there 3 years ago.
Oh, this sign, guys, for those listening, it's pretty big. It's like a 4-foot sign.
Yeah, it's a big sign. It's not like a little picture. It's one of those ones that you stick straight on the wall. And I put that up there 3 years ago when I moved in, because I think I wanted to have that vibe in my house, right? And so I don't like having arguments in here and like people crying for no reason with my nieces. I'm like, you can cry, fine, if you like hurt yourself, but you can't be getting all crying for the sake of crying. It's all about good vibes here. The little things like having the hammocks, having the gym set up, having all that creates a space that works for me. So
I'm quite excited. You've got some mates coming around later for a barbecue, and I come around the house with, I know how he doesn't typically drink alcohol, but he does often drink it when he's with me. So I have brought around a vegan bottle of champagne,
which I will have.
So we're gonna have a bit of that later. Over some plant-based burgers which I brought, jalapeno burger, which actually I'm quite excited to eat. That was quite nice. So should be good. I mean, I was saying earlier, we're talking about gadgets, and there's a gadget I found. I haven't used it because I logged into my app since 2018.
Oh, God,
it's by Antelope, and it's a full suit system. I bought it on like a Indiegogo early, crowdfunding thing years ago. They're now retailing like €1,700, by the way. So I'm not using it, but I found it the other day, came across it. I thought, right, I'm going to get back into my mobility, back into my training, try and change things up a little bit. And I had my first workout today. And to describe what this is, it's like an EMS suit, so the electrical impulse suit, and it's everything from abs, chest, back, quads, hamstrings. I'll have to have a go on. It's a full piece of kit. I thought, what I'll do, you're supposed to do 20 minutes a day. Haven't used it for, 5 years. I thought, I'll go for a 10-mile run, and I'll put it on as I go. And I had it on for the entire run. I kept just resetting it, another 20 minutes. I couldn't run faster than 5-minute 30 pace. So it absolutely impacts you, because the endurance setting on it means that these stimulants are kind of moving constantly the whole time.
Yeah.
Finished it. I'm just absolutely, I don't know if it's the run or fitness, or I'm just absolutely knackered. EMS for an hour whilst running. I reckon you can have some really quick fitness gains though.
Well, yeah, but like I was saying before, it's all about the recovery, right? And I think like if you've overdone on the body with that, because that's why they say 20 minutes a day, not
Probably.
wear it for a 90-minute run.
Well, no, maybe not.
Yeah. Although, like I said, I've got those the Normatec type trouser things. You can have a go on those, and I put my mate on them once when he came. He was in there for like 3 hours.
Yeah, they're so nice. They make me go to sleep.
Yeah.
I put them on to help me.
That's what my sister. My sister, she just goes to sleep on them. She's like, I want them, but she wants the one. There's, I think, an upper body one.
Get the sleeves. Yeah.
So she wants a whole body one. So when she moves into her new place, I'm sure she'll get one because she hasn't got any space at the moment.
To describe what these are for people listening, these are like compression trousers you put on to recover, and they have like targeted pressure chambers that I don't know what they do to change.
They just basically, they just constrict the blood flow and then release it. It's like squeezing a hose pipe and then releasing it, and it just flushes things out and helps release like the susceptibility to DOMS, like delayed onset muscle soreness, reduce your cortisol, make you more relaxed.
You use them pre-workout as well.
I tend to just use them. I haven't used them recently because it's been so hot and you get quite hot in them. But my the reason I bought them actually was for my dad, because he doesn't move much, and I was like, he needs to get blood flowing in his legs. But he used them pretty consistently for a couple of years, but then it just got a bit of faff, like having to get my mum to put them on. Even like me, when I'm trying to put them on, I couldn't be bothered. So I bought him an EMS device as well. Actually, you put your feet on it now, and it sends shockwaves up the electrical pulses up the legs.
They are mad. If you put them too hard, I put it on my arms. On your suit, you've got the ones that go on your biceps.
Yeah. And
I couldn't adjust my phone. It was pulling too hard. So every time it went off, it contracts your muscle. I was trying to change the thing on my phone. I couldn't move my.
I remember like Bruce Lee used to use that back in the 70s. Like,
really? You used to get the ab ones.
The ab one. But so anyway, that's a long opening for today. What were we going to talk about? We wanted to talk about something.
Well, I was going to obviously probably change a little bit because we're sat on a hammock swinging in the open breeze. But I was going to talk a little bit about authenticity and what that meant for you, and how I think I've seen it show up and not show up recently.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by authenticity? Like the idea that we don't do the things that we really want to do because we're fearful of, and I'll say it's judgment because I think typically that's what it is, the judgment of others if we were to do that thing. Yeah. So, really simple example of that might be a child, and I can use my own children as an example a little bit, maybe not Leo, he's only 9, but an older daughter. Now when she grew up, I've got loads of videos of her singing and dancing, as we do with most kids. They love it, singing to Frozen, dancing around the kitchen. They haven't got that understanding of social judgment at that age.
Yeah.
If it's joyous and it's fun, I'll do it. All right, by the same token, if they don't like something, they have a tantrum. All right, It's very easy as a parent to understand if a kid loves something because they show you, they tell you, or if they don't because they sulk, they cry, whatever. And you think parenting, you've got it sussed, it's really easy. Of course, this doesn't just relate to children. But I've realised that as my daughters get older, and it's not just her, other children as well, because I'll ask her about the kids in her class and the idea of getting up and singing in, for example, karaoke, right? And we talked a little bit about that in the last episode, which kind of stimulated the thought behind it, really. But people don't do it anymore. But it's not because they don't get loads of joy from it, although they wouldn't get joy because of the social judgment. But if you took that social judgment away, in theory, the joy of singing, the joy of dancing would still be there.
Yeah.
And it does come out when people have had a few drinks, and karaoke, sometimes you see it come out, and if you go to a club, it'll come out. But when you're not in that state, let's say you're completely sober in this instance, people won't go up and do it. But authentically, that is actually what they want to do to get joy. So we're actually just, where does that fear come from? Why do we let that fear dictate who we really are and what it gives us? Because what it also does is it reduces our ability to laugh. It reduces our ability to have and feel joy. And I watched a video recently which was talking about laughter. And let me ask you a question. I'll think about it because I'll try and, it may be different, but I'll try and give you a sense of what this video I watched gave me. When was the last time you really laughed, like belly aching, you had a really good giggle, tears of laughter?
Oh, belly aching. To be honest, it's actually hard to get me to that point. Although I did laugh.
Or even just a good laugh.
No, I laughed the other day watching something on. I can't remember if it was. It might have been the Netflix comedy special 37 and Single.
Okay, that's cool. So you remember that one? Well, and give me the time before that.
I laugh when I've got my nieces around. Okay. Definitely. But I mean, laughter for me is a big part of the well-being thing. Norman Cousins, that's the guy I was thinking of the other day. I was talking about laughter the other day with someone, and I was saying how Norman Cousins, who I can't remember if he was like a news journalist or an author or something like that in the 60s, 70s, but he claimed to have cured himself from cancer or something or other with laughter, like 8 hours a day laughter therapy.
I think there's a certain, I can actually believe that. Release.
Well, yeah, because you're releasing cortisol, you're releasing stress. You know, you're creating those endorphin things, which are going to be beneficial to the healing process.
To bring it back to, so I would say then you've laughed once a week ago, maybe at the time of your nieces, maybe a week before,
not
2 weeks
often
before.
enough.
But if we think about maybe it's twice a month, 3 times, I mean, that's nothing.
No.
It's not enough.
No.
And actually, I think that's really representative of how most people are. Not everybody.
Well, in our culture, because I was thinking about this the other day when I was watching something, and it was like I guess it was I don't know whether it was Central America culture or some culture, and there were two. Actually, no. You know what I was watching? I was watching an episode yesterday of Shark Tank, the US Dragon's Den version, and the guys were pitching a Korean barbecue in a pot sort of thing, and they'd had like millions in sales. They were pitching it for like 50 million as a thing. And one of the things the guy was saying, he was really happy and smiling. He was saying, like, you know, there's so much laughter and so much joy in that Korean environment, and there is with like lots of cultures. But I think in certain cultures, maybe in more European cultures, it's not as prevalent.
I think it's there, but it's suppressed. So to take it back to that point, because you're absolutely right, and it is. I'm definitely referring to Western culture and where we are here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's more prevalent elsewhere. But in the video that I watched, the guy said, "Oh yeah, no, I laughed with my mates 2 weeks ago and just for that," and he thought that was quite normal. There was no issue until the guy pointed out. So you probably laugh, really out there 24 times a year. Like that's not enough. So he said, and the guy went, "Well, I guess I haven't ever really thought about it like that." And he said, "Well, let's explore it." And I was obviously watching this thinking that's probably about the same for me. So what's the issue? And actually, there were some common traits between this individual and me, and maybe that's why it resonated more. I found the whole conversation fascinating. But anyway. It was a YouTube video. But anyway, the guy said to him, "Well, why don't you laugh every day? Like it's the most natural thing." And he said, "Well, I won't go through a whole story. This video is quite long, but in essence, they went through lots of different questions, talked about his childhood. And he said, when I was growing up, the guy that doesn't laugh very often, he said, look, I wasn't very good at school. I was always getting in trouble. I was in the wrong crowd. I was always getting in trouble. I got in trouble with the police a couple of times and these different things. And he said that what happened on the back of that is, if I was laughing in class, there was an immediate assumption that I was doing something wrong. What have you done?
Yeah.
So I can't learn not to laugh in class because there was an assumption I was doing something wrong, even if I wasn't. Or maybe I was sometimes, but they've made a connection. Yeah. So you're kind of told it's not good to laugh in that instance. Then you get home and you're laughing at home and your mum's like, what have you done?
Yeah.
So it's the same. So he said, over these years, I've kind of probably learned that it's not acceptable to laugh. Yeah. So I'm suppressing it. And the guy, a massive guy, like strong as an ox guy, and he started to really get quite emotional about it. And he was like, "Oh God, it's a real sad thing. I should be laughing more, but I think it's just really suppressed." And it goes on to the things we suppress. And you talked about it earlier today when we met up. What's stuck in your subconscious, that we suppress it, and it's somewhere in the back of his mind. He's been told that it's not necessarily okay to laugh unless you're really with close friends or really in a secure environment. And I guess I was linking that to authenticity and. Sometimes,
because you're being authentic to me, I guess, means like behaving in a way that aligns with who you are.
Yeah.
And when you're suppressing a laugh or whatever, you're not behaving in a way that when you want to do that. And I think, definitely it resonates where you were talking about, you're told not to laugh at school and all this, and all of these things are learned behaviours, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like children bring us so much joy, and they're blank canvases until we muck them up a lot, and they are laughing all the time. I remember actually one of the things I miss actually about a previous relationship that I had many years ago. I think we laughed every single day.
Yeah, we do.
4 years every day we laughed.
Yeah,
and I noticed that when we broke up, and I was like, I'm really gonna miss that. And then I tried to replace it with like comedies and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I write about laughter in the book that I'm going to release, and I talk about, okay, if you don't have like the nieces or the kids, because usually you can laugh with young kids all the time.
Yeah.
is watch the comedies.
So that's interesting. We can, but I think that's because it brings out the childish nature in ourselves. I think I laughed pretty much every day when I was at university. It's post-university when you get into the corporate world and different things. But I think we can laugh more. I can laugh more with Leo and Eva sometimes than I can with certainly with work colleagues occasionally. You have banter in inverted commas. But I also think it's not because things aren't funny. I was thinking this through since I saw this thing. I was like, is it also because we're not doing the things that give us the joy, that give us the laughter? So, for example, we talked on the last video. It was only really reflecting on our last podcast, and I was talking about when I absolutely, and I have, because my friend Neil has since sent me the video, like completely destroyed. And
there's a video of it.
Again, authentic. I don't mind showing you because why? We'll have a good laugh about it. Right? It's absolutely worth doing. But I watched it back, and I had a good laugh at myself. But most people wouldn't have put themselves in that position of potential ridicule in order to do that thing. But actually, although I did completely bomb the song, I did really enjoy being up on stage. I did really enjoy playing the guitar, I still do. And I enjoy singing, even if I'm not very good at it. Yeah. So I got joy out of doing the thing. And the result of that thing has allowed for quite a few number of laughs, maybe at my expense, but it doesn't matter. Because what was authentically within me, and I was angry with myself when I heard the podcast back because I put a lot of the pressure on my dad telling me that he wanted me to go up and me saying I didn't want to go. If I'm really honest with myself, of course I wanted to go. I wouldn't have done it. Yeah. I just kind of knew I wouldn't be any good.
Yeah. Well, you needed that
was the push support that got me to do the thing. But I actually laid the responsibility for me going up in the last episode, and there's only me listening to it back in real time. I went, that's a bit unfair. Of course I wanted to go up. I just knew I wouldn't be any good, and that gave me permission, which I shouldn't need, but it gave me the permission to go up and make a fool of myself. But all I've had since doing it is laughter, fun, and joy.
That's it. I mean, I think like there's a phrase that I always remember, and I'm gonna somewhat butcher it now, but like, you know, when you're young, you're kind of thinking that everyone is thinking about you and judging you. When you get a bit older in life, you don't really care what other people sort of think about you. And then when you get really old, you realise no one was thinking about you in the first place. And I often think about that because, I mean, I deal with this all the time in the stuff that I do in schools, because obviously there is...
Image is everything.
Well, no, it's not that so much as that we're doing the public speaking stuff, right? Oh, okay. So the whole thing is a judgment of your speech at the end. But and here we're doing an activity that they're brand new at as well, so they're nervous anyway, and you know, I do my best to foster an environment that allows for that to happen. And I always bang on at the beginning. I spend probably the first hour on personal development type stuff like comfort zone and this idea. I love my acronyms, as you probably know, but like FAIL, first attempt in learning.
Yeah, we'll talk about so episode 2 or 3.
Exactly. So I'm always banging on about that and how, you know, you have to fail to make, you know, to become successful, because and I say to them, like, you know, you're all very successful at overcoming failure, because I saw all of you, presuming this happened, all of you walk into the room right now, and they go, what do you mean? I go, well, the average toddler when learning to walk fails on average 17 times an hour, right? Falls down 17 times an hour. And imagine if they said to you, Nick, you've already fallen down 12 times this hour, you're clearly not getting this walking malarkey. If I was you, I'd just crawl for the rest of your life, less heartache, less disappointment. But you didn't think that. And you carried on failing for another 6 months, and then you got it. And then somewhere between the age of 2 and 3 and 14 and 15, we think failure is a bad thing. And a lot of that's coming from the judgment of other people.
Absolutely, there's no judgment when you're learning.
I think I remember it's around, for me, it's probably around that age of about 8 or 9, because I remember like going to primary school, but in those later years. And it might be because I joined a new primary school for those last 4 years, but you know, you start to like get on the football team, and this is what happened to me, is that, you know, you miss a shot on the basketball team, and then people are like judging you on that, and then you start to be afraid to do the things that you want to do.
And cliques form, and you're worried that
exactly. And so I think it's all connected to that, but
it sticks in your subconscious. I was thinking about this. Also, I've gone a bit down the rabbit hole, which is what I want to talk about today. Since listening back to my own version of events, which I don't think were wholly accurate, in the sense that they were accurate in the way they were described. My dad was asking me to go up, but I actually did want to go up. I had to reflect on it. And I was thinking, okay, when I'm in the car, me, my kids, and my wife, all 4 of us, we'll sing really loudly. We're comfortable. There's no judgment with ourselves. We all know none of us can particularly sing, right? And I would suspect that a pretty high percentage of the people listening to this podcast will also, when something's on, sing along comes on in the car and no one else can hear them, they'll sing to the rooftops, right? And it's an overused comedy sketch, seeing people do it, and it's still funny to watch. And yet very few, if any, would come out of that car and continue to sing the song. But why? If it's joyous in the car, in theory, it should still be joyous anywhere. It's not, as far as I can see it, for only one reason, and that's because other people will hear us and judge us. And we want to be socially accepted, but authentically we know we get joy from doing that. And then there's also the thing where we see that we always know someone, so comparison being the stealer of all joy. We always know someone that's better at it than us.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't judge if someone was singing in the street too much if they were absolutely fantastic. If you see Aretha Franklin, singing in the street, or Adele, whatever, you're going to go, wow, that's incredible. You'd judge positively. But because we don't have those voices, we automatically assume the other, and we know that we think negatively 80% of the time, right? That goes on repeat. But someone somewhere has probably told us that we're never going to be a singer when we're older. And we listen to that judgment, and it stops us doing the thing that we love.
Yeah.
And interestingly, even though I'm telling you this now, even though I enjoy singing and dancing or whatever, I'm still probably not going to walk down the street and do it for the same reasons. And I guess I've been exploring the things I do or don't do since because of the judgment of others.
Even extrapolating this out to something a little bit more, I guess, not necessarily relevant, but
with joy comes laughter, which is where I'm going with the joy thing.
Well, I'm thinking about more of the not doing the thing that you want to do, right? So like, I've read so many of these books, like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, but I'm thinking like our listeners here, so many people doing work and jobs that they may not love and isn't authentic to themselves. And what strings to mind, because I know that a couple of days ago when we were thinking, maybe we talk about this topic, and you were talking about me taking the career change and
I look up to you in this way. I'm not envious, it's the wrong word, but I'm very respectful and impressed, and I don't mind saying admiration is the right word. I have huge admiration for not just you taking the career leap you've taken, but since we've met, even when we were away on the tours, like you do the thing that gives you joy, whether that's bringing a smoothie maker out where everyone is judging you going, for God's sake, Harry's brought his bloody smoothie making again, or eating differently and following different diets and going on silent retreats for 28 days or whatever it is, and we all think that's a bit mad, but you're not doing them to be different. You're doing them because you believe in what you're doing, because you believe in your values of vitality and all those things. And I love the fact that even when we're out on those things, I think there's a little bit of your ego comes in because we all have it, but you've done handstands and great photos and little things like that. We're all looking at going, I wish I could do that. But then there's a bit of us going, if the devil in us or the bad wolf inside us will go, if I could do it, I wouldn't be doing it anyway, in that kind of vein. And that's what people are thinking, right? And it's really, why do we think like that? It's
a
so
couple of
negative.
things.
I didn't, by the way. I have admiration for it. It's why we're still friends and going on.
For me, I love my Bruce Lee quotes. Right? One of my favourite ones from his is that, I think this is from him anyway. He's like, when talking to a reporter or something like that, he's asking him some stupid questions or something. He goes, he's like, I haven't been put on this earth to live up to your expectations, and you haven't been put on this earth to live up to mine. And I love that, because I'm like,
I love that. That's great. I've not heard that before. Really,
it's one of my favourite ones, because I'm like, at the end of the day, you can try and please everyone, you please no one. And I was talking to one of my best friends who lives out in Austin the last 5 years, and maybe could go and see him shortly. And I remember 12 years ago, right, he had a heart attack. And it was a big shock. I actually talk about it in the book, because I talk about it from a technology point of view, because I was ignoring his wife's phone calls because I was having dinner. I was like, can wait, sort of thing. But that's another story. But the point is that I remember a few months after his heart attack, he came out for dinner with me, and I think he asked me in the car, he was like, what would you recommend I eat in something when we get to the restaurant? So and he was asking me the same thing, like sometimes you were talking about. It's like, isn't it difficult because like living the way that you live, because you're going to have all these challenges, right? And actually, it is true, right? Because I probably stopped getting invited out for dinner. In fact, actually, a couple of weeks ago, I got invited around to a friend's house for dinner, and it's the first time I think I'd been cooked for in like 15 years like that, or 12 years. And I said to him in the car, I remember this so distinctly. We were near Elephant and Castle, and I said, look, at the end of the day, at one point, you've got to decide in life. Do you want to live by your standards or somebody else's? Because these are other people, they're going to come and go anyway, right?
Yeah,
and you need to live by your standards and what's true to you. But going back to, and thank you for saying, I inspire you. You definitely inspire me, like holding like this amazing jobs and the family that you've got and the interests that you have and all the other stuff you do. But one thing that prompted me to do what I did, I remember this distinctly, and this So I left the stock exchange. So I worked at the London Stock Exchange from 2004 to 2010. So 6 years there. Then I got made redundant. And prior to that, and I kind of fought for the redundancy a bit because my whole team got made redundant except for me. And I think it was to do with not getting rid of too many people at once. In the end, I managed to wangle it a few months later. And I went on that NLP course and started to shift things. And I was kind of thinking that I wanted to go in that direction, but wasn't sure. And I remember this would have been January, I think it was early January 2011. And I was staying at my parents' house because I think my sister at the time was working nearby and my folks were away. And I remember thinking, and I actually remember being physically sick because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I'd been out of work for like 4 months by then. I had come up with the name The Thought Gym a couple of months earlier, and it still wasn't doing anything. It didn't have any direction. And I was going, shall I go back to normal work? Shall I not? And I was staying with my sister, and I remember she left for work, and I got up and I was in my bathrobe, and I was one of these things where I wasn't going to get out of my bathrobe all day. And I through all that thought, I physically became sick. And I remember being sick. And I don't think even my family know this. And I became sick. And then I remember thinking, and I was thinking about my sister Alex, and she was working as a director somewhere. And I was thinking, and I think I've told her this before, but she inspired me because she left uni and then she went to work for the BBC, and then she decided to quit the BBC and do her own thing. And then for years, we're talking like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, she was effectively like, I guess, living off her boyfriend, living off my parents, like trying to do this director thing. And then it was like years later, she ended up becoming like the youngest director for Hollyoaks. So then she did Hollyoaks later and EastEnders, and now she goes out to the States and does things. And most recent one I think was on Netflix, The Recruit, the one about the spies or something. Anyway, and I remember thinking she's following what she wants to do.
Correct, yeah.
And I was thinking, if not now, then when? If not now, then when? Am I going to wait till I'm 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 before I do the thing I want to do? And so that's what prompted me, that physically being sick, seeing my sister do the thing that she wants to do, and
and being motivated by not by the financial side of it, and doing something that feels more.
I mean, and to be fair, I put things in place that worked, and as it turned out, I didn't then jump both feet in. So I actually ended up working as a contractor at Sainsbury's, and that was. You
mentioned your sister, like. Most people need some kind of agent for change somewhere in there. We all need people around us to support us on our journeys, right? And you talk about your social bucket, we talk about social energy buckets. We need people to help us and support us, and those that don't support us, often the people that we don't need. That doesn't mean that everyone should say yes to everything we say, but if it's authentically part of who you are, you shouldn't be fearful of the judgment. But then we look at it on a broader context. Society now is people are scared to say anything.
Oh yeah.
And then we lose that authenticity. And if someone does feel a certain way, whether we agree with their point of view or not, it's almost a bit of a shame that society's putting those boxes up or those walls up. So everyone just wants to think the same way, and it's just so disappointing.
Look, I was literally saying this the other day to some colleagues of mine, and I said, look, if we all thought the same, right, we'd all be wanting to live in the same house, have the same job, eat the same food, go to the same restaurant. Like, the whole point of humanity moves forward because of differences of opinion, differences of ideas, and it's about respecting those, and then learning and adapting. Like, from a religious point of view, for example, I don't consider myself religious, right? And I don't want to use I'm spiritual or whatever. I take, and there's so many similarities across many different religions, but it's like you take the similarities, you look at the differences, and again, going back to Bruce Lee, which I quote again in my book, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely yours. And that's what I like to tell my delegates when they come and listen to me speak, is that you might not agree with everything I say, right? But don't dismiss it out of hand, right? Try it on for size for a bit, but once you've tried it on for size, absorb what's useful, discard what's not, and then put your own twist on it. And I think when we're becoming our authentic self, it can be hard to actually sometimes even understand who we are, because we are only who we are in relation to other people. That's also a thing. Yeah,
we're often a product of our surroundings, a product of our
environment. What I mean is that
environments as well.
Not only just being a product of our surroundings, but like, for example, I'm and I'm not to say that I'm different around different people, but I am. Different people are going to bring out different energy within me. Now that's all still my authentic self, but we need those other people to bring out parts of ourselves. So when we have people around us who are, and again, this comes down to some of the friends that I've maybe moved further away from, where I felt like they weren't maybe as supportive, right? Or and that's not to be totally fair to them a lot of times. Because I remember, like, I don't know if you know that I did a comedy thing a while back.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So and I think they came out to support one show and stuff like that. And but you want friends in your corner that are going to champion you, even if you're, you do want some authentic feedback from them as well. But you don't.
But they're championing you, not your comedy. That's the thing. That's the authentic part. Is my wife wants to take a different direction at any point. I don't really care what that direction is. If it's what makes her whole and happy and she feels that's calling her, my job as a husband is to give her all the support she needs without judgment.
Yeah.
Not, I don't think that thing's cool. I mean, I'll tell you what, we're watching, this thing's amazing. So I am judging now, but I also love it. And there's two things I'll mention. One is I showed my mum a video. She did not believe this thing existed. And she actually tried to do this at my dad's party when we were in France. There is a thing really big in Scandinavia, and it's the Hobby Horse Championships. If you've ever seen this, have a look on YouTube. This thing exists.
Hobby horse is like a wooden horse, is it?
Yeah, literally. It's really, really popular, like really popular. And there are girls and boys that put a hobby horse, have a hobby horse between their legs, whatever, and
that's the one between the legs. And
they do jumps, they do dressage.
I think I've seen something like
this. It's mad, and it's really popular. And there's a particular video I was watching, showing my mum, of a girl who had flown out for the World Championships. She videos her journey. She talks about the scores. Oh, I got a really good score. My foot placement was a bit wrong here. But they're literally running around with hobby horses, and the instant reaction is to laugh and think that's ridiculous. And that was certainly my first reaction. I don't hold my hands up to it. It just was. And I showed my mum because I thought it was funny, right? My mum looked at it and thought it was the most wonderful thing she'd ever seen. Instantly went out and wanted to buy hobby horses, wanted to do it for the group. She just thought it was wonderful. She has no interest in exercise whatsoever. And she was like, that's something I would love to try. I was like, what? She didn't find it funny at all. She just thought it was absolutely the most wonderful thing.
Are you now not being your authentic self by restricting yourself from laughing at that? Because I think...
No, I did laugh at it.
Oh, good. Because the thing is,
I'm not fearful of judgment. I did laugh.
I think
the sad thing in myself was I judged. People may not do the thing they love because they're worried that I might laugh.
Yeah.
But my mum did it anyway. There was a kind of everything.
What I want to say is that there is always going to be a judgment, right? And so I'm not sure that the judgment is so bad. Like, so let's say I'm doing something and you're judging me. You judging me is fine, but
as long as it doesn't stop you doing the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. So it's like you can still have that judgment. I'm just not going to have a judgment about your judgment.
You're not going to feel the judgment or suppress what you want to do for fear of the judgment.
Because,
no, I get that.
Because that's the thing.
But it was also like coaching or trying to be a better person is about awareness and awareness of what is it I was laughing at. I was laughing because it was so different and in my head ridiculous, and I still think it relatively is. But then I saw my mum's reaction, which was totally different. I kind of made an assumption that everyone who watched this would have the same view as I did. She thought it was the most wonderful thing ever. And then she said, if Eva or Leo were into this, I know you as a dad, you would be the most supportive, and suddenly you take the whole thing.
But you'd be super proud as well because they're kind of doing something.
I mean, do check it out. It's the most.
I've got it in my head because actually, I'm starting to have a little bit of a smirk when I'm seeing them going around doing it.
I've got a friend of mine I spoke to recently, and she disclosed. I say friend, it's a work colleague. Hadn't met her for several years. We met at a work event, and we had a really good conversation. But she'd listened to a couple of episodes. She might be listening to this one of the show. And she obviously, from listening to the show, felt confident enough to disclose something that she hadn't disclosed before. Now, I bring this up because you mentioned that you're not religious and and whatever. She said, you might judge me here, which was really interesting because that's how she opened the conversation. So already that's something that's suppressed from a lot of people, but you feel honoured that she's sharing it because she'd prefaced it with that. But she says, I can hear voices from dead people. She said, I hear people all the time. I don't do anything with this gift, but I hear it regularly. There's no one here at the moment, but isn't that mad? And sometimes I can be in the most weird places. I can be anywhere, and suddenly someone will connect with me that I don't know and ask to try and connect with someone else so I can hear these things. And how mad is that? And sometimes I've used this gift in good ways to help family members. And I thought it was the most wonderful thing she told me. And weirdly, it's not something that I believe happens, and yet I was very cautious not to be too dismissive of the fact that it does for her.
Yeah.
It kind of challenges it, because I'm like you, I'm not religious and don't really believe in ghosts.
I'm not religious in terms of I don't follow a dogmatic religion.
But I'm also not going to correct someone on something that was true for them just because I've not experienced it.
I actually believe it is true.
I just found it wonderful. It was just a really good conversation, and I had it in my head. I had to be conscious of my own awareness of it, because my initial reaction would usually be dismissive because it's not true for me and not something I've experienced. But it was very, very true for her, and it kind of it left me just contemplative, I guess.
Well, it reminds me, actually, I saw an Instagram post by, I don't know if it was like Eva Mendes or someone or other, but it was talking about, when my child gets into trouble, I want them to like be thinking that I'm the first person to call, rather than trying to hide why they got into trouble from. And it's that idea of feeling safe that you're not going to be judged, and feeling safe that you're going to be supported in whatever the thing is that you need to share with your parent or whoever it is. And I think we as a society do a really bad job in fostering that, and that's why people are not being their authentic self, right? They're and actually, this goes back to what I was watching last night, that we talked about the open house weird Channel 4 thing where...
Oh yeah, if anyone hasn't watched it, this is about the big sex experiment.
Oh yeah, it's called Open House, the Big Sex Experiment, and I happened upon about 5 minutes of it while I was flicking through yesterday. I thought, this is interesting, mainly because I've been, talking about things like that with other people over the last couple of months. Yeah, but then I went on and watched about 5 episodes on their kind of version of iPlayer. And it was really good, but the point in terms of the authenticity part is that a lot of these people, the reason they were going to those things is because it was being inauthentic to them to, like, say, live in a monogamous relationship like that, and they didn't want to cheat. They wanted to kind of have and explore this in a safe environment and stuff, and be their authentic self. And I think, like, these days, most people, this was the other thing I was watching. I love my movies anyways, but it's actually quite a good movie. I think you'd quite like it. It's called What's Love Got to Do With It? It came out on Netflix the other day.
I'm always nervous about your movie recommendations.
So it's about a guy who is Muslim, and he's 32, doctor, and he thinks it's about time for him to get married or something, and he's open to the idea of his parents not arranging a marriage, but like doing like an introduction or an assisted marriage, they call it. And his next door neighbour, childhood friend, girl next door sort of thing, and they've grown up together, whatever, and she's a documentary maker, so she's going to make a documentary about this, much to his annoyance, but ends up convincing him to allow it. And then they go to Pakistan, and then he meets the wife to be and all that, and then they come back, and it's pretty apparent that it's not working out, and they were talking about, we've got to just pretend like it's all good. Like, she was in love with someone else. He wasn't really feeling her so much in the end, even though it wasn't forced upon them. But it's this idea that we'll pretend like everyone else, right? People just go and put their smile on, they go to the job they don't want, they're with the partner they don't want, and you're being inauthentic. And yes, I know life is complicated and all of this, but
it also needs to be, because without challenge, that's where the joy comes from. Joy comes from having a yin and a yang to life anyway.
When I talk to people, say, about values, right, and we say, like, we've talked about values before, and where there's a conflict in you, where let's say you say, I value family and I value exercise, but you spend 80 hours at work and you don't eat healthily and all that. Now, one of two things is happening. Either your values are wrong, like you actually value work ahead of thing, or you do value that thing, but you're not living in that value. And so when you live in an inauthentic way, and actually one of our top tips for students, the first one I think is be yourself, right? Because you're the world's expert at being yourself.
Sometimes a lot of people need to do the work to understand what they themselves are, because we suppress stuff so much from a young age, and often we don't know what that is until we
suppress stuff, and these days now you're being influenced by lots and lots of media around you, and this is why I spent 2 and a bit years traveling by myself. I'm going to go away now by myself, although I'm going to meet people out there. I've spent a lot of time by myself. I've spent 10-day silent meditation retreats. I've done a lot of inner work, and I've spent, I would say, most of my time is single, interspersed with bits of relationships. Other people, they've been in relationship after relationship since they were 16. I don't know how you can really know who you are if that's how you've been, because yes, you need other people and this is, like I said before, you are who you are in relation to other people, right? So in that relationship with that person, you're like this happy, joyous person. This other one, you're probably a serious person or an annoying person to your daughter or whatever it might be. You do need other people to understand aspects of you, but you also need lots of time to yourself to understand who you are. You know, Socrates says that the unexamined life is not worth living, right? And I think a lot of people will do anything they can not to sit with themselves, not to examine themselves. And I used to be similar.
Low self-esteem is an epidemic in itself here. I think there's a lot of people suffering with low self-esteem. I think a lot of that comes from trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to be what they think other people want them to be.
Other people's definition of success.
A fake expectation. Absolutely. People are thinking that when I have this money, I'll be able to do X and I'll be Y. And when I do this, I'll do that. And when I do that, when you can actually do that thing now.
Absolutely.
You know, money's just there.
But I even like going to uni and doing the subjects I was studying at school. Like a lot of people, they go to uni and it's like, it's not like your parents have actually said, do this, but you have this imagined expectation that your parents want you to do this certain thing. Like I'm sure one of my family members, she was like,
certainly in different communities, some are, very much showing they must be doctors or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Well, this person, she was like, oh no, they want me to be a lawyer. It's like, no, actually, no one ever said be a lawyer. You just have decided to do that. Remember, and for me, it's about ultimately one day taking responsibility for where you are in life, because there's only a certain point you can get to blaming your parents, and then at some point you've got to have to say, I'm an adult. And the reason I say take responsibility, even if you're not to blame for a situation, is that if you're not responsible, you're not responsable. If you put the onus on someone else, you're powerless to change it. If you put it on yourself, you've got.
And
some
Viktor Frankl talks about this in his book.
Oh yeah.
And one of the most powerful things we have as humans is the ability to choose and to have choice. And it's really important we remind ourselves that there is always a choice, even when someone says there is no choice. Sometimes telling yourself there is no choice, there's always a choice we can make. Interestingly, I say this because we're sat on two hammocks. Right, and this is wonderful. I wish we're not videoing today, but I mean the scene is pretty epic.
We should take a photo though.
We should. We're both sitting on a hammock.
And we'll put it on.
Put it in the show notes. But I read the 4-hour week.
4-hour work week.
Years ago by Tim Ferriss. Big book. You've got it as well.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was in that book that I read it. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I did read it a long time ago.
Oh, me too.
But Tim Ferriss talks about, only because you were talking about their money gets the thing, and people often are really restricted by where they are, by their budget, by their financial planning, or whatever, which means they can't be in the lifestyle they think they want to be mortgage free or whatever. He talks about that in the book, and he says, look, for a lot of people, the dream is to be sitting on a hammock as we are now, sipping cocktails on a beautiful beach, and they live for that 1 week a year where they may get to go away and do that thing. For most people, they could live that lifestyle tomorrow.
Yeah.
But to achieve that lifestyle, you probably got to move out of the UK and live in the Philippines, or live in Malaysia, or live somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the choice. If that's the life you want, there is nothing stopping you from having that life tomorrow, where the pound goes a lot further, where you don't need the same level of income. But we make the choice not to do that thing. It's our choice often to live in the circumstances we're in, because we're not willing to take a different choice about being. And there's nothing wrong in not doing that. Maybe because we value social connection more. We want to be near our parents. We don't want to take the risk. But it's the idea of being. There is always a choice.
There's always a choice, and you can certainly do, and it definitely is in that book. So I remember thinking to myself, I read this after I went travelling, but I was living on £10 a day for like over 2 years on average, and that included like things like flights and this and the other. So you definitely can do it. But I also remember when I went travelling, so for the first year and a bit that I was travelling, I never spent more than 4 nights in any one place. Then after about a year and a bit, I think I spent 4 months in Sydney. And I remember that bus journey where I decided to go from Sydney to Melbourne and move there. It was a lot harder than I thought, like to move that inertia, to move out of the situation. And I'd only been there 4 months, and I was like, this is really hard to like, where am I going to stay? What am I going to do? And
the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was like, and I've only been here 4 months.
And you value security. So that must have been a real inertia.
So it's like, and even now, like I've said to my mates in the States, I've decided yesterday to book this ticket, and I said, well, I'm going to go into Vegas, and I'm going to come out of, because you need to have a return ticket out of the States. So I thought, I'll just get one from New York. And I have no idea. And I said to my mate today on the phone, because he lives in Austin, and he's like, well, it's a really busy time for us or whatever, but you're more than welcome. I'm like, look, I'll just do whatever. All I know is I'm going to fly to Vegas on Tuesday. I don't know. I might stay with my friend for a bit unless we get sick of each other, in which case I'll go. I'm going to travel light, so I've got the freedom. Because it's quite liberating for me to do that, but it also felt hard to make that decision in the first place. Once I made the decision, it was all right, but to go out there, it felt hard because it's like the unknown. It's like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to hang out with? Where am I going to go? And I think I think I'm being my authentic self actually when I do travel and go in a backpack and meet new people. And I felt like when I was in Estonia, it was a version of myself that is more my authentic self.
There's a version of events going on in your mind here, which I think is quite interesting. Yeah. So I've talked a few times, and I think you have as well, about the idea that the mind naturally will think defensively or negatively more than it thinks positively. And a rough estimate, and they have done a lot of scientific studies on this, is we think negatively sort of 80% of our thoughts. So your first 80% of your thoughts are all about who am I going to do, what am I going to do when I get there. But when you're able, with the awareness that you have, to switch the positive side on actually, this will be an adventure. You can silence the negative thoughts.
Well, I just said to my friend, look, I'm open to possibilities.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm open to possibilities, and I think I've been hanging out with someone recently, and she's been putting that out there as well. It's like, and actually, it goes back to that judgment piece as well, because she was like saying, look, you know what? She's quite an open, loving person. She's like, she's been in relationships in the past where, that person, it's been too quick for that person, or then she's holding back because they're judging, is she really into me or not? And she's like, I'm done with all that. I'm going to be my authentic self. If that person takes it in a certain way, then that's on them. And that's actually true. And, I was joking with a colleague the other day where I was talking about no one can make you feel anyway. So, people come back and go, Nick made me so angry. It's like, no, Nick didn't make you angry. Nick did something.
You thought about it.
And you created the anger within you.
Created a feeling that created an emotion.
I've said this to my family members and my in-laws.
How'd it go down?
Does not go down well. It does not go down well. But the reality is, it's true. Because I think we've said the equation before, E plus R equals O. So event plus response equals outcome. Because you could do the same thing to someone else and they're not going to get angry. No. You do that to me and I'll get angry. So the anger was not in you and put into me. You did the thing.
It's the way that you've interpreted
it. I chose to become angry. Now, that wasn't a totally conscious choice necessarily, but once you become aware, you can decide.
So this is really interesting because like I mentioned, I didn't think this would be coming up in today's show, but actually really interesting conversation. So I'm in London I had an event on Thursday. It was like a payroll leaders influencers group.
Which Nick, I think, won some
award. I won Personality of the Year.
Personality of the Year for all the work that you do. Yeah, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a bit earlier this year. But anyway, it was a round table. So it was like 13 people invited. It was at the 8 Club in London, quite exclusive, 3-course meal. We all sat down, we chatted about things. I won't give the identity of the individual away because that'd be unfair to do so. But there was a conversation that took place, senior level conversation, where they were feeling really, they were wondering whether they were in the right job, number one, and because I felt really restricted, they were making loads. The success reel of what they'd achieved in a short space of time was pretty phenomenal, and they'd rolled out all these achievements. Well, that's incredible. I think it's time to go. There's a particular manager, a boss, a director, actually, board level director, who was always slow to react, challenged everything, always made me create a case study, and by the time I got it through, like, we've lost weeks, and I just find it so frustrating. But I just don't think I can do that anymore. It's holding me back. And interestingly, that obviously the view from her perspective was all negative about this particular partner, even though they liked them as an individual in terms of career progression and everything else. So I just thought I'd challenge a little bit, and we went through a few different questions. I was like, rather than always talk about what you want, if you ask what that individual wants and try to understand that, and we talked about that. But ultimately what I said is, have you thought about the fact that you've achieved all of these things because this individual hasn't allowed you to do everything? If you'd been able to do every single thing you wanted, we often believe we can achieve so much in 1 year, but we overestimate what we can achieve, and we look back and underestimate what we can do in 5, and that's a common thing. But I said to the individual, look, if you'd only ever been a yes person and you'd gone ahead with everything, you may have found that you'd taken on too much, and actually a lot of the achievements you've had in the last 40 months may not have happened as successfully. And actually this individual could be the break that you need, and I break as in the breaks, that you need, that's allowed you to be as successful as you are. And actually, without that in your workforce, because all the other partners are always saying yes, I don't know. You might have crashed and burned. You may have been overworked. You may have needed an absolute break. You may have been suffering from fatigue. You may have nothing left to achieve. But actually, what I'm hearing now is someone who's incredibly motivated, who's achieved loads and loads and loads. That, the word you said before, the grass is always green on the side that you water. You're thinking that if I go somewhere else, that won't be a blockage. Well, it could be. It may not be. But you may not have all the opportunities to make the number of changes that you have. Anyway, we had a really good conversation. And by the end of it, like, she reflected and said, I'd never considered him as a positive influence before. And that's kind of completely changed my perspective. Yeah. Like, actually,
reframe it.
She reframed it, changed the view. And we talked a lot about view in the past. And we can look out the same window and see two totally different things. You know, you see the pedestrian, I see the sea, or whatever it is. And it was just a really interesting, in a live environment, watching the perspective change in real time. And it was just a really interesting experience.
It's just that penny drop-in moment, isn't it, where people like us as coaches live for, where you can maybe see something in that person, and it's just for them to understand it. It's interesting.
But at the end of it, I think she was actually asking, maybe that's the part that looks out for me the most.
Well, yeah.
But who knows?
And I was thinking, because I was reflecting on this quote the other day for some reason, and as you were talking about saying to this person, oh, have you ever considered that you wouldn't have achieved everything you did if you could do everything? I think it was an Oprah Winfrey quote. And I remember it saying, in life, you can have anything you want in life. You just can't have everything. And that's what reminded. It's like, you can have anything you want in life. You just can't have everything. And because and it's this idea of focus, right? And as I like my acronyms, follow one course until success. And sometimes we don't focus enough, and therefore we don't get what we want. And if you're scattergun approach, but I'm thinking, I don't know how long we've been doing actually on this, but 55 minutes actually. So, but in terms of like people listening and they're feeling that they want to become more of their authentic self. Now, there's something that I really liked actually. I think it's called, ironically enough, authentic communication. Or there's this branch of. I just remember doing an activity like 5 years ago with some people from Mind Valley, and she was a facilitator in this authentic communication style of communicating, and we did exercises, and one of the ones that I remember, which I really liked, is the one where basically you would tell you would go into pairs and you would tell a story or say something about something like that, and when that other person, say like I'm telling you something, Nick, that you're just getting bored or the other person's going off tangent or you're just not interested, you would just say thank you. And it was just that pre-agreement that, okay, kind of shut up, or you're kind of like going off on one now, or you're boring. And it was doing little exercises like this that actually really, really kind of ignited something in me, where I was thinking, I want to be more authentic in my communication. And recently I was doing that as well, I think, where I was talking a little bit more honestly about what I was feeling, what I was wanting. So I think, I guess my question is, for listeners who either want to be more authentic in the relationship they've got, or the communication, or maybe living to their authentic self, what other suggestions do we think that we could offer them? A
couple of things that come to mind, and I'm going to bring it back to the sex show that we both watched. The big experiment, right? Yeah. So, and also linking it to what we've talked about in your beat model, and what we both believe in as well, that the body will tell you when you want to do something, or if you feel something. So if it's a relationship, I'll go back to the big sex experiment in a moment. But often we feel it in the body. We feel it as a knot. I don't mind disclosing, me and my wife, when we were in France, she felt something in her stomach. It was like a knot, and she hadn't communicated it. And it turned out into a full-on exploration in terms of things that were working well and weren't, and it could do with improvement in our own relationship, right? But we feel it in our body. And if you've got a knot in your body, wherever it is, wherever you're feeling it, because you want to say something, that knot's not going to go away. In fact, it's going to get bigger, because it's your negative thoughts on repeat. It's going to cycle around in your system. So if you're in a relationship and you've got something you need to say, the recommendation is say it, because the authentic part of you wants to say it. The only reason you're not saying it is you're worried about judgment of your partner, you're worried about the repercussions, or whatever it might be. So you can feel it often in your body. And without being too graphic, in the sex experiment piece, it wasn't just people who wanted open relationships. They're all different couples in this house. I only saw one episode last night. First time I've seen it. But there was one couple where the guy was really paranoid about the size of his penis.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And he was like, but that doesn't mean he didn't want to have sex with his partner.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to for fear of judgment, and he didn't want to be open in front of others for fear of judgment. And clearly someone at some point had either told him that he had a small penis, or he had measured up against what he thought was the norm or whatever. His partner didn't seem to mind.
No, she didn't care at
It was
all.
all in his own subconscious and in his conscious mind, to be fair, he was very aware of it. That he had suppressed, and it changed who he wanted to be. And one thing that was really nice watching that one episode was watching him get more comfortable with his own body. Because clearly what he wanted to do and what his body was telling him is, I want to have sex with my wife, my loves my wife, whatever, and I feel unable to do that confidently because of this issue. And ultimately that issue was fear of judgment. No matter how you break it down, that's ultimately what's holding him back, the fear of judgment. Am I enough? Does she want something bigger, whatever? And he had to come to terms with the fact that his wife never had an issue. She'd married him, and actually none of when he did do the comparison being the steal of all joy, but he had been comparing himself to porn videos and everything else, right? But when he sat in a group of people all there for different experiments and different issues in their own sexual lives, he realised he was actually pretty normal, and the judgment went away.
Well, to be fair, she also judged herself. Did you see the part of where they were both in the beds together with the other partners? Did you see that bit?
Yes, I did, and I know I didn't see all of that. They clipped it for another episode, but it was when she was very uncomfortable.
Oh, so I actually saw that next episode because it turns me into like...
They ended up leaving, didn't they?
Yeah, because basically, not to be too graphic for our listeners, but the four of them are in the bed. They start with each other's partners, and then the wife goes over to the other guy, the girl goes over to the other, and they're both going down on their respective guys, and then he's like, oh, you were really enjoying it, and he's like bigger than me, and you were going deeper on him or whatever, and then she was like, yeah, but you see, you never make those sounds with me, so she was feeling like
she felt really insecure and leaving
and like the words you said, not enough, is so there's a therapist who does this thing called rapid transformational therapy, Marissa Peer. She's quite well known in certain circles, and I think her main thing when she's worked with all these clients, Hollywood A-list celebrities, all that sort of stuff, is it all comes down to I'm not enough. So it's two things really: I'm not enough, and I won't be loved. They're the two fundamental things. And she has actually, this could be something for the listeners to try. I think I'll probably get it wrong, but I'm sure it goes something along the lines of the mirror exercise, where you look at yourself in the mirror in the eye and you say, I am enough. I'm enough. But you don't just say it rotely. You say it like you believe it, and you might have to say it a few times, and sometimes people can get quite emotional with that, and I think we need to hear that from other people for sure, but we need to hear that from ourselves.
100%.
That internal voice that, and when I actually finish my my yoga sessions, right, I almost always finish it with the same phrase. There's two phrases. So hands in the prayer position. I say, up to the third eye, watching our thoughts, sort of thing. But then I said, give us when I put the hands in front of the mouth, I say, give us the restraint to watch our words, especially when dealing with other people, but also to be mindful and compassionate about our own internal dialogue. And that's because we are sometimes our own worst critics. We're hearing ourselves saying, you're not enough, you're not good enough. And I've had this many times, like on the sports field, like, are you going to miss, or you shouldn't put your hand up to take the free kick, someone else is better than you.
If you hear that stuff enough, eventually you believe you're not good enough.
That's you believe it. That's it.
And people unfortunately, people like to say, so I like my Powerballs, as you know. So I'm trying to think of one that correlates. It just popped into my head. It's a really short one. It's good for kids. Have you heard the millipede who meets the rabbit?
Don't think so.
The millipede's walking down. It's quite a fun one. Millipede's walking down the road, very happy. All the, I don't know how many legs they've got, 1,000 legs, whatever. All in perfect synchronization. And they're walking really happy across a lovely, beautiful sunny day. And a rabbit pops on by and jumps on, hops along and says to the millipede, wow, I've been watching you walk and it's beautiful, it's amazing. How do you get all your legs to work in such synchronistic form? And the millipede thought, I've never thought about that before. I've just never thought about it. Oh, well, I think it's wonderful. I hopped away and the millipede tried to walk forward, fell over. Was unable to walk.
Yeah.
Until that moment, the idea being as a parable is until that moment, it's never something they've had to think about.
Yeah.
It's never something she's felt judged, even though judged positively. The millipede's just walked. It's the most natural thing in the world. A bit like you talking about the baby or the toddler naturally squatting. Right?
Yeah.
It was only when the millipede thought about how on earth do you synchronize 1,000 legs and the impossibility of that situation that she was no longer able to walk. I just think, if there was no judgment, even positive or negatively sometimes, that would never have been a problem.
We overthought it. We
overthink all the time.
I mean, people that know me well enough know that about me, and I've been doing my best the last few months to not overthink things. So then I found myself the last few days overthinking things, like I was overthinking this house. Well, not overthinking. I mean, like, they're big things, right? Going on holiday, maybe going on a house purchase, but then it's always up to that decision. Once the decision has been made, and actually, I think a friend of mine who I saw her post on Instagram the other day, and she's a psychologist or something. She was talking about decisions, and the thing is, it's when you make. She was talking about making quicker decisions in business. Because the thing is, when you make a quicker decision, even though yes, you've got to do your due diligence and a few other things, but you're quite a quick decision maker, I feel, and it frees up so much more time and bandwidth to focus on the things that matter. And I found that, like, recently, where I was like, I'm in an iron for like weeks about where I go away. Do I go to Colombia, Thailand, Bali, blah blah blah? Do I not go anywhere? And then as soon as I made that decision, I'm like, can relax. My brain has got free space to think about other things. And in the irony being, when I'm with clients, I often say, look, you are going to make wrong decisions in life, right? And actually start with the small things, right? So when someone says, oh, what movie should we go and watch tonight? And you say, oh, I don't care, you choose. No, you make the decision.
Actually, it's often the worst thing people can say is you choose.
It's like you make the decision, right? Where we're going to eat, you chose. You don't say you choose, right? You yourself choose, because what's the worst that can happen? But the thing is, people go from not making any decisions, and I was thinking about this because I need to rebuild my decision-making muscle, not going to making decisions to suddenly deciding about houses, holidays, careers, partners. And I feel like, some of those things that are cropping up in my mind at the moment, I'm going, yeah, but I've also struggled recently deciding on what frigging movie to watch, right? I need to start with the small stuff and make quicker decisions. Understand that sometimes they're going to be wrong decisions, but they're decisions that I own.
So if we bring it back to authenticity, a lot of people will potentially listen to this, will feel they're in the wrong job or doing something wrong, and they want to make a change, or they want to move house, or whatever it is. But they get so caught up in the how, it stops them from doing the thing. And like, I would just say, forget the how. I know in business, I don't worry about the how till later on. I make the decision first, and then the how will take care of itself. Because once you've made the decision, you're committed, and you go and do it. And I want to even write down some mobility. I haven't considered which exercise I'm going to do yet. I'll work that bit out later. What I'm deciding is the next 21 days, I'm going to try and improve my mobility. I've made the decision.
That's what I find very similar in lots of entrepreneurial people I know, like yourself and a few other people. And that's not me. Like even like we talked about this podcast. You're like, let's do this podcast, right? And I'm thinking,
you were, I was like, I'm
thinking like, what's the name going to be? We're going to post it. How are we going to do this? And you're just like, no, let's just do it. And that's what I like, right? You're just the Nike of it, right? Just do it, right? And I've found that with some other people. It's like, it's like what's his name? I'm not that particularly like him. Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook. It's like, move fast and break some things, or whatever his phrase was. It's just like, just do the thing. And actually, the book that I read every day, which you might see up there, The Greatest Salesman in the World.
I saw it on your shelf.
I'm pretty sure it's I've got it in both bathrooms. But it talks about, when I feel like procrastinating or whatever, I'll counter that with action. Like, just take the action.
But there's loads of things that give us signs. So if I said to you right now, you're in an ice cream parlor. You like ice cream?
I love it. I had lots of ice cream.
So you're in ice cream, right? Ice cream parlor that does every single flavour in the world. Anything you can possibly imagine, it's available. But you can only choose one flavour. What would you go for? Would you potentially be in a mode of going, I like all of those? I don't know. You can only have one.
Well, it depends.
And it will be the best ice cream you ever tasted in the world.
It would be something chocolate based.
But that's interesting, right? So we offer a lot, certainly for kids, they'll be in wonder that there's so much choice that we don't make any decision at all.
No, paradox of choice. This is why when I became...
But we break it down. I'll come back to paradox of choice, but I don't want to lose the thread. But the idea being that when you're in there, you can work stuff out. So you just said, well, I like chocolate. Okay, well, that already eliminates...
So many.
So we know we want something chocolate. Do you like chocolate on its own? Do you like chocolate mint? Do you like chocolate with strawberry? But eventually you would narrow down all the flavours, and you can constantly go, well, I like that a bit more. I like it. Actually, I like strawberries as well, so I want chocolate. And eventually to get your flavour. But first you got to start making the decisions along the
You
way.
gotta start cutting things out. I think like I was in Delicious the other day. That's it, and I had like 3 different types of chocolate. But
the first decision in all of that, of course, at no point you say, oh, actually, it's too much. I don't want one. The first decision is, I'm going to have a flavour.
Well,
right, now we're into it.
This is what.
Now let's crack on.
When I changed my diet, and I actually found a couple of things. Is that one, it felt so much easier going to restaurants in a way, because now it's a bit harder because they have more choice for vegans and stuff. But before it was like there was no choice. It was just like one thing. So it meant that I didn't struggle with, oh, this is good and this is good and this, and can I have this and would this be a better choice? It's like, no, the only thing that you can have by your own choice because of how you decided to eat is this thing. I found that was so freeing. And then the other thing is actually it gave me more choice in a way. Let's say I went into a sandwich shop and I'm used to always getting chicken sandwich, so all I would ever see would be a chicken sandwich. But by taking the meat away, I suddenly opened my eyes up to other possibilities. So it's kind of like,
so it's like actually it came to my mind earlier. I should have mentioned it because Harry very kindly made me a smoothie and a juice earlier on today, and I said to him, why don't you just put it all into one thing? Like, why are you making 2 separate things? It seems crazy. Just put it into one and make one smoothie. And you said, oh, but the benefits are different because the juice won't be this way, it doesn't go digested and whatever. And actually, I had this thought. I didn't mention it at the time, but it's a bit like going into, let's say, Holland and Barrett. Hopefully, most people, maybe not the American listeners, but it's like a vitamin store. You go and get a good health food store. If you go to Holland and Barrett with an unlimited budget, and I said you've got to read every single bottle, most people will go, well, and I'll read echinacea, that's good for this. Oh, that'd be good for me. You read iron, well, I need more irons, I need this, I need more zinc. You'd come out with every single thing, because everything on the bottle will tell you that the health benefits. So you would naturally want to put, and I've made this mistake with making smoothies at home and green smoothies, is you try and get every single superfood into one smoothie. What happens is it tastes like crap. It doesn't work. And actually, it's not what we need either. Just because the bottle tells us it's good for X, Y, and Z doesn't mean I'm deficient in it. The best way really for me to understand my needs is to do some kind of, body composition test or some kind of analysis that tells me I need more magnesium in my diet, and maybe that's because I don't sleep very well. Maybe I need more, I've done my sweat rate, so I know I get rid of 1,500 milligrams of salt per litre, which is very high compared to the average. I think it's 977. So I get rid of almost two times more salt than most people, right? So I know that I need more sodium when I'm exercising, but I know that from doing the analysis first. But if I go into a Holland and Barrett, the chance I come out with everything, and a lot of it I don't need, but the natural assumption is when you've got all that choice and everyone is telling you and every bottle is telling you that everything is good, we must have everything, we must put it all in, and actually it's not always what's good for us. I don't know if it necessarily links to authenticity, but the thing that's good for me is the things I'm genuinely deficient in. And they're the things hopefully are going to make me better. And for a lot of people, if you've got good...
a lot of people are deficient in authenticity. I think that's what I think that's what we've concluded. And I think, trying to understand. I guess a mirror to the world, like your friends or your people close to you might hold a mirror up to you and help you understand if you're being more authentic. But like you said, your body will tell you. If you're going into work and there's that knot, if you're having that conversation with that person and there's that knot, and it's like, okay, and this is what I was talking about a couple of episodes ago when I had that frank conversation with that friend in Estonia. I was like, it wasn't exactly a knot, but it was like a little charge that I had to release, because I was like, actually, I'm not being my authentic self, and I'm not being honest, and it's not. And as long as I come from a place of understanding, caring, love, whatever, into that conversation, and this is, I think, going back to that open house sex orgy type thing, is that's what they were talking about. It's like that therapist, like, come from that place and also be very clear on your communication and the boundaries that you set and all of that. And this is what I heard from some other relationship woman that was speaking to me about her 3-year or 2-year polyamorous relationship, and she was like, and visiting all these places, that she became very, very good on what she was willing to tolerate and not willing to tolerate, and her communication. And I got that same impression from that, watching those shows yesterday. It was all about communication, and they're like, okay, this is how far I'm willing to go in this situation. This is what I want you to do. This is not what you to do. One guy got into trouble actually, because before they went to the retreat, the woman, the wife, had said, you're not allowed to engage. You're just gonna, this is kind of my thing, but I want you there and involved. And then she was getting frisky with this other woman, and then she got annoyed with him afterwards because he didn't engage, and he's like, but I've just done what you've said at the boundaries. And she said, yeah, but things were going in a different direction. You should have like.
But she's
got
judging
in
him,
there.
though. It's interesting.
Yeah, and then in the end, the next day, they made an agreement with the therapist that he could then engage in some ways, and then they both came out much happier because the rules have been set, the parameters have been set. It's just when there's not that communication and you're doing it to not offend the other person or whatever reason.
I think often, one of the scariest things for a lot of people, right, is I'll go back to karaoke because it seems to be a common thing when people want to do it. And as you say, when you've gone up once, you can't get them off the stage. And that's often one of the biggest signs of this is authentically what you want to do, but you don't because fear of judgment. And when you've gone one song, suddenly that fear's gone. Beauty of fear, of course, is fear promotes action. Apathy doesn't. I call the apathy like the eels of this world who've just given up on everything. They're much harder to try and motivate. But those who struggle with fear means fear often will result in an action. Freeze, flight, whatever, but you'll usually have a reaction to it. But when you're in that queue, if you imagine the first four go and you know it's going to be your turn, and there'll be an experience in everyone's life where you're being hypnotized or you're about to sing or whatever, and someone asks you to tell a joke, and it's about, or they ask you to read in school, whatever, and you know it's going to be hit on your turn and you're not a good reader. You get that knot in your stomach. I would ask you to try and investigate the knot. Is the knot there because you're worried about the judgment of everyone else in the classroom, the theatre, whatever, friendship group? Or is it there because you generally, I don't know, whatever it is, but explore the knot. Because 9 times out of 10 it's because you're fearful of the judgment that other people are going to give you when you do that thing. And as you said earlier, like, no one else can make you feel anything. So change the way you think about it.
It's a really hard concept for people to understand. So if you're listening to this and you don't get that, that's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's like if you consider yourself cool or you consider yourself not cool, both is true.
Yeah.
Like it
yeah.
One person's cool and someone else is not cool anyway. Right?
You choose the meaning. Like everything. So, but I think we should probably wrap up because I think hopefully some people are going to be coming around soon
for your birthday barbecue, mate.
Yeah,
happy birthday.
It's just a chilled lads one, I think, tonight. So, but
vegan, plant-based burgers, vegan champagne.
Well, no, I said bring whatever you want.
In the sunshine.
They can bring meat.
I've been inauthentic really because I bought plant-based burgers and I usually have a meat eating.
Exactly. So
but I would argue that's me trying to be considerate to the other.
Exactly, which is also being authentic to yourself as being a considerate person.
Well, it is, and also because I'm not afraid to tell you that usually I eat meat.
I really don't take offence on any of those things, and I'm quite happy to have meat on the barbecue. But we do have half the meat and half the veg, and then we'll get the fire going afterwards. Although yesterday it was 30 degrees at like 10, 11, 12 at night, so we probably don't even need a fire, but it's nice to have it anyway.
We need to get a photo of the spot, put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and I think I also need to let my mates know the address, some of them, because they're like, where is it again? I know it by sight, but I don't actually know.
Well, listeners, thank you for tuning in. It's been quite a long chit chat. Hopefully you're still in the room, and remember to share it with a friend or colleague or anyone you think might benefit from the content. We've got an Instagram channel now, which is the _mindful_podcast, so check that out and follow us on Instagram if you can, and remember to subscribe and review if you get a minute.
Thank you for listening and take care, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mindful Path podcast with Midday and Hari Kalymnios.
We hope you found our discussions insightful and hopefully you've gained some valuable takeaways to support you on your own journey.
Please leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform and share an episode that resonates with you with a friend or family member who may also find it valuable.
Please also don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to ensure you never miss a future episode. And in the meantime, we'll continue exploring Mindful Path topics to provide you with more insights and more ideas to support you on your personal growth journey.
Thank you for your support and look out for the next episode of the Mindful Path podcast dropping soon.